you started off, professionally you're an attorney?
I am an attorney.
And you were in, entertainment law?
Yes.
And then, how do you go from doing entertainment law and working with big media companies and saying, hey, I want to run for Congress? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's it's definitely like, I wonder how you got to that point. Well, for me, I've always been so interested in politics and government ever since I was little. I've helped out on several campaigns before. So I helped out on, the last campaign that I helped out on was for Kenneth Mejia.
Kenneth Mejia of the Green Party. Green
Party, right. So Kenneth Mejia, he was with the Green Party. He ran for the same spot that I'm running for right now, but 2 years ago, against the current congressman. And so during that time, I was involved in all these campaigns. And then I just saw, oh my gosh, there's all of this momentum and movement starting with AOC, Bernie Sanders, Andrew Yang, and it's like, oh my gosh, where is that for our community? We have 7,000 homeless on Skid Row. We have 60,000 homeless in the county. What are we doing? What is our Congress doing for LA? Like, we're the 10th poorest congressional district out of 434 5 districts in the nation. We're the 10th poorest. But yet, why isn't our representative putting us on the map? Why aren't we at the forefront right now? Why isn't homelessness at the forefront in general for all communities of America? And so I was like, you know what? I know I just got a new job at Sony, but I'm gonna run for office.
I live in Southern California, but I live in an area with it's very Republican.
Yeah.
And they say things like it's the Democrats who are in control of California, and they're the ones that have ruined California, and it's very difficult to get them to even look at a Democrat. So how do you reach people like that?
Yeah, well, in terms of, I think what it first comes down to is this sense of whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, we have too many career politicians taking unlimited campaign donations and contributions from corporate interests, whether they be banks, pharmaceutical companies, healthcare companies, real estate developers, oil companies, student debt collectors. And because of that, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a Democrat, I'm progressive, I'm a self-alleged progressive Democrat. We're gonna throw money here, we're gonna throw money there, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do free. But then when it comes at the end of the day, and this is where I'm gonna go ahead and use my role model MLK Jr. and bring him into the picture. What he said was, we all start off good with this great intent of fixing and addressing this and doing that, but then when it comes into the implementation of it all, he didn't use the words F it up, but he essentially said, we screw it all up. Because we end up starting with good intentions, but we end up implementing it all wrong, because when we implement it, we have everything else addressed first before the actual issues addressed at the end. And by the time we then focus our energy and time and money on it, there's no more time and money to be spent on, and then bam, we've already lost it in that sense. And so I think with that, that's where it comes with Democrats. It's like, even though we approved a $1.2 billion in LA County a few years ago to build more housing, what do we have of it? We only have 22 units that were built during the past.
For $1 billion.
From $1.2 billion.
From $1.2 billion,
only 22 units were built. So in that sense, it's like, holy crap, like, what's going on with the money? We need to be doing investigations into what's going on. Where is this money going from? Is this type of contract and the rates that are being called out, are they reasonable ones or are they unconscionable ones? And so we need to, first of all, cut off the ties of corporate donations and corporate interests being able to donate to political campaigns and elected officials, because that's why we have all of this money going to these developers instead of actually going towards the units of housing that they were intended for.
If you're talking, you said 1.2 billion for how many units?
22 units.
This comes out to something like what, $50 million for a single unit.
In addition to the startup costs of the program and all of that, but essentially
$50 million.
how they calculated it was 600,000 a unit. I mean, and they were probably trying to cut that down as much as they could, but even 600,000 a unit? Are you serious, when we could be doing it for a fraction of that with modular units of housing, by expropriating different single residence occupancy hotel buildings in downtown or over the city, seizing those, making use of abandoned buildings, when we could actually, there's not just building new housing, there's being more creative and using existing housing or existing buildings and turning that into it.
Right, but
and
even
so
the 600,000, I mean, it just seems like, from just a regular citizen's perspective,
yeah,
it just seems like blatant incompetence and or corruption.
yeah,
Like in this country, we're very focused on national politics, like the presidential election, and we don't seem to be as concerned, at least in the media or even local media, doesn't seem to be as concerned about local politics. Do you think that maybe change is best achieved locally, and rather than trying to vote for a president to fix everything? And do you think that, like, why do you think it is that we don't focus as much on local elections or local politics so much?
I think one of those things is the sense of hopelessness, perhaps, might be one key thing to it. Although people aren't really told by ear what's happening, you kind of, like, all of us, I feel like, have this sort of sixth sense element where it's like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but why do we have potholes everywhere? Why are there people like homeless on the streets? Why do they actually have homes with nowhere to go and it's out in the cold? Like, why are okay, something's going on. So it's sort of like this, okay, it's a little bigger and too much for me. So I don't want to open that can of worms and then see this whole state of dystopia that our Hollywood movies show us, and to actually see that as a reality. So why don't I just sort of ignore that right now? The people that are on Skid Row, they're not human beings, they're just ghosts to me now. So let me turn my eyes to national politics. Oh, there's hope there. Yes, Bernie Sanders, yes, Andrew Yang. And like, it's great. I'm not belittling that at all. Mm-hmm. But for them, it's to get this moment of hope and inspiration elsewhere, because it's hard to get in their own neighborhood and locally. So they get that elsewhere. And so with AOC, with Bernie Sanders, with Andrew Yang, what I love about each of those candidates and their movements is they get people excited from all parts of the US, from all parts of each state. And once these people get excited, whether it be Bernie Bros or Yang Gang, once they get all excited, it sparks something in them, and then they in turn go back to their communities, right. And then they go ahead and run for office. They become local organizers. They're the ones that are gathering signatures to put their candidates on the ballot.
I see that you graduated law school in 2010, and you wanted to get some experience before you got into politics. And I see, like, on your marketing piece here, mm-hmm. At the top, you're fighting for the #1 issue here, or the top two are universal basic income and universal Medicare. But going to universal basic income, like say 10 years ago, when you initially had this idea, like I need some experience before I go into politics. I mean, that UBI was not a thing back then. Like,
no.
So, how have your views changed from 2010 until today? And
that's good questioning.
I mean,
that's good.
Bernie Sanders was not really that well known 10 years ago, and the term, I remember 2010, socialism was still a very bad word in this country, and now socialism, or you got to add democratic in front of it, and then people can kind of talk about it. I mean, but communism is still the bad word. But things have changed a lot in the past 10 years. So, how have your views also changed in the last 10 years, as we've seen all these, like Bernie Sanders, Andrew Yang, AOC, and these progressives become more mainstream?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where I think from that real life experience that I've gained through the 10 years, that's where I have a kind of a connection with a lot of these different issues, not just personally, but just observing as well. There was a time where it was my second job out of law school. I was working 70 plus hours a week. I was being paid on a 1099 at $2,000 a month, and I would end work late at night at 11, 12, go see my friends, and and have no money to be able to pay for bills. And so I would always just kind of say, hey, yeah, I already ate dinner, but I didn't because I needed to save money because I had to pay back taxes on my $2,000 1099 working for that. And it was sort of like in this crummy legal market at the time, like I'm sort of trapped in this hole because I still need the experience on my resume to be able to still be marketable, but then I still need a job, but then there's no jobs. And so I realized, oh my gosh, like what are we doing about not just myself, but then all of those other people who are trapped in these minimum wage jobs where they're being bullied or where it's not financially enough, but yet because of all the different various factors and conditions that they have in their lives, they're sort of trapped in that. Or those who want to do a career change, or those who want to go ahead and supplement their income so that their spouse can go ahead and do something else and sort of switch off in that. And so where it sort of became like your job just sort of became your owner and your master, and you sort of became the slave in the sense where there's not even a time where you're able to breathe or go ahead and take that time off. And so for me and kind of also growing up as a child, and even with me starting off at a $2,000 1099 job, I had to go on Medicare as an attorney. So it's like, yeah, I have $200,000+ in law school loans, and I'm on Medicare, and I'm working 70 hours a week, and I'm only paying $22,000 a month, and I have to save a percentage of that for taxes later. So it was kind of like, holy shit, like I get this, that it's happening to me, and then it sort of opened my eyes, like if it's happening to me, I wonder how many other people it's happening to. And it was like, oh, it's you too? Oh, you too? Oh, you too? Oh, in that industry too? Oh, in that profession too? And so it was like the sense of, oh my gosh, like our people are financially shackled right now. Like we're freaking slaves. Like we're not living life to live life. We're living life to go ahead and get a job, and to be able to just get a job and not really experience, because our work numbs out our feelings and our emotions. And so it was just sort of this, like, we have masses of people suffering like myself who still work their butts off, and some people might work harder than I do, but in the sense of we have people working their butts off, but then there's no light at the end of the tunnel. What are we doing right now as a government?
Did you grow up in Arizona?
I was born in Arizona.
Sierra Vista?
Sierra Vista.
Is that a small town?
A small random town 40 minutes outside of Tucson.
Tucson, which is already not the big...
Not even Phoenix, yeah. So okay. 40 minutes out of Tucson. My dad, hardcore full gospel, Republican. Pentecostal Republican pastor, immigrated from Korea, and he's also has this like go-getter, self-starter personality, and I think that's where I sort of get mine from. But he planted a church in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Were
there enough Koreans?
So at the time, so I grew up in a lot of army-based community churches. Okay. So where we had a lot of our Korean church members were wives, Korean wives, Korean ethnic wives, and then their husbands were American soldiers in the military. And so there was an army base right there in Sierra Vista. And so then there was a need for, we had a lot of kind of Korean spouses who didn't have a church to go to, and their English was good, but then they'd prefer going to church, worshiping God in Korean. And so then, so my dad planted his church there, and that's
so most of the people attending the church service would be mostly women?
Korean women, yeah. Okay. And then we would have a separate English service like after that, and then my dad,
the children,
or for the husbands, and then so my dad would hire like an assistant. I do this as American pastor because we're all Americans, but a non-Korean pastor he would bring in to preach to the husbands. A white guy. Okay. No, but my dad hired African American pastors as well. So so that's why it's so I guess non-Asian pastors he would hire. He would never.
But I imagine growing up in like a small town, 40 minutes from Tucson.
Yeah.
Being the only two, you and your brother, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
The only two minorities in your school.
Yeah, and then at that school, and then we also moved to Washington State, Tacoma, Washington, near Seattle.
Tacoma's probably a lot better.
Right? Tacoma's a lot better, but still, we were still the only non-Caucasian kids at our Baptist school. But yeah, no. So like in Arizona, it's Republican. In Washington, I remember when Patty Murray ran for governor, or when Gary Locke became governor, and I was like, oh my gosh, the rapture is gonna occur. Like 666, Antichrist is gonna happen because Gary Locke just became governor. He's Democrat. Like I was that. Like
you were that
brain, not I was that I don't know what the word is because I don't want to offend people. I was that trained to learn that anything that was non-Republican was satanic when I was growing up.
I mean, and how do you think it's amazing? I feel like if Jesus were to return today, that he would be condemned as a communist spy or something like that. And I mean, it's amazing to me that because I remember I grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And, you know, I went to a private Christian school. And they were all, I remember the teachers they supported Bush in 88, who won against Dukakis. And I remember I supported Dukakis only because his name was Michael. And I'm a Michael too. And that's all I knew. But I remember the teacher said to our class, how many of you want George Bush to win? And everyone raised their hand. And I was like, oh crap, maybe I should do that too. And so I just did it. And then later I realized, oh, that's like the thing. Like if you're a Republican or if you're Christian, you have to vote Republican. Meanwhile, Jesus doesn't seem very Republican to me.
Yeah.
At least in the way that, I mean, he doesn't really seem like a Democrat either, but
yeah.
It's amazing that Republicans have used Christianity. I mean, I don't see how that happened. Like, where did that happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, if I were to label a party on Jesus, not that I know the guy, I mean, like, in the sense that we're talking about, or whatever sense, but I think, I don't know, like, I would first say he'd be Green Party, but then I don't think he'd be Green Party. Like, and so I really don't know which party he would fit in, to be honest. I think he would just
be Jesus be a capitalist?
I don't know.
That's another.
But then I don't know. I think this whole conversation, discussion of socialism versus capitalism, or all of one versus all the other, or all of one just by itself, I feel like, although idealistically we talk about it, I think it's inevitable that they'll always be mixed together, in the sense of, if we're really going for, I mean, this is a whole can of a different conversation to have later, but yeah, I mean, in the sense of there must be an equal balance to everything, is what I'll wrap that up as.
For me, I figure most people, even people who say like, oh, communism is evil, socialism is evil, whatever, I think they couldn't even give you a proper definition of socialism or capitalism.
That's true.
All right, so Ktown Social Club here with David Kim, who's running for Congress.
Yes, hello.
California's 34th Congressional District. So he's fighting for universal basic income, universal Medicare. He wants to, handle the homeless
situation.
The situation here in Los Angeles. He's a progressive. So if you like AOC, if you like Bernie Sanders or Andrew Yang, he's your guy, David Kim. So, tell the Ktown audience.
I can't do it. Never mind.
To tell them to come out Tuesday and vote.
Tuesday
got
vote.
Any, I don't know, some snappy message like,
hey, the last day to vote is Tuesday, March 3rd. Polls open at 7 a.m. and they close at 8 p.m. Go to lavote.net to see where the closest polling location near you is. If you haven't registered to vote, it's totally fine. You can go register on the same day that you go vote, and that started this year. If you can't go on Tuesday, March 3rd, go ahead and still go to the website, see which locations are open the day before or 2 days before that. But go out and vote, because we can really make a difference. We, the people, need to take our power back, and we can't do it without you who is watching this, so please go vote.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming, and good luck on Tuesday.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Okay.